Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. He's rejoined by familiar faces like Judge Reinhold and John Ashton as Rosewood and Taggart, along with new characters and new hijinks.
I didn't realize that you couldn't really fly helicopters.
Watch Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. only on Netflix, July 3rd. Rated R.
The living room is where you make life's most beautiful memories. But your sofa shouldn't be the one remembering them. The new life-resistant, high-performance furniture collection from Ashley is designed to withstand all the spills, slip-ups, and muddy paws that come with the best parts of life. Ashley high-performance sofas and recliners are soft, on-trend, and easy to clean. Shop the high-performance furniture in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
To get the Crime Writers on After Show right now, go to patreon.com/partners in crime media.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, in 1978, a California conservative put a question on the statewide ballot. Should gay teachers be banned from the classroom? We'll close out Pride Month with a review of Slow Burn, Gays Against Briggs. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Mr. Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy, host of Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
All right, Kevin, this is obviously Thursday's program.
It is.
What's coming up on Monday's show?
Oh, on Monday, we're going to listen to season 2 of a very interesting podcast that we listened to a while ago. It's season 2 of The Letter, Ripple Effect.
Now, season 1 was the restorative justice
yes,
one,
it
right?
was,
Where
yeah.
the family forgave the guy who
Way to
killed their...
spoil it, Rebecca.
I mean, it's not spoilable. It happened like a couple years ago.
People are still mad about season 1 of True Detective that Toby spoiled all those years ago.
It was the guy in the lawnmower.
It's the lawnmower guy. God damn it.
Is there anything else we can spoil from a long time ago?
True Detective season 2.
Rose can't get Jack on the door. He dies.
It's a big enough door, really.
It is. Everyone knows that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I don't know what's going on here.
He has no idea.
Titanic. Have you seen Titanic, Toby?
I have not.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I feel as though we've gone through this before.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So at the end of Titanic, or near the end, Rose and Jack, who have fallen in love on the Titanic.
The ship sinks.
No spoiler there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got that part.
They're both in the freezing. They're both in the freezing water.
Yeah, it's cold.
Everybody in the lifeboats is far away from the ship because there's this myth that when a ship sinks, there's going to be this big suction effect and suck everyone in.
That's no myth.
And well, it's not true in the case of the Titanic.
The way it went down, it just went right under.
And so,
they built the ship Titanic to sail the ocean
lifeboat
blue,
people
and they thought they had a ship that the water never knew.
Okay, Laura. So the lifeboat people can hear all the people screaming in the water, but they don't go to help them because they're also afraid that
they'll pull them in, swamp the boats.
Unclean masses or whatever will climb onto the lifeboats and kill them all. So Rose is floating on a door. And Jack is his hands are on the door, and she tries to pull him up one time. And and she's not able to get up, and they're like, oh, well, I guess he won't be able to get up on this door.
And he freezes to death in
the
water.
And he freezes to death with his arms on the thing.
Spoiler.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then she has to scrape his hands off the door and watch him sink down into the ocean. And that's how Leonardo DiCaprio dies in that movie.
And there a lot of penny whistle. It was
a lot of penny whistle.
Yeah. But just sort of a historical fact about the suction thing. You remember in the movie that at the stern of the ship there were 3 people. It was Jack and Rose and the chef, with the white hat and everything and the black mustache, and he was drunk. That's historically accurate. And they said that when the ship went down, his hair didn't even get wet. He just swam right away because it just went down smooth. It was probably the angle it went down at or something like that. But I don't know.
Anyway, so that's
Imagine
what
not
happens.
getting your hair wet. Yeah.
And then at the end, she throws her necklace into the ocean.
Okay, how about we just...
Husbands and wives, little children lost their lives.
What the fuck are you saying, Laura?
It's like
What the fuck is that?
Laura refuses to go on camera, and now she's like completely lost her mind.
Yeah. All right.
God.
All right. Let's talk about the podcast we're going to be talking about. We got to get our jobs done. Kevin, should I go ahead and drop that first clip now?
Yeah, do it.
All right, let's do it. Leading off.
In June 1975, the Gay Teachers Coalition held its first ever press conference. They called for the district to ban discrimination against lesbians and gays.
Made the front page of the San Francisco Examiner, and it said gay, gifted, and closeted. Not a bad headline.
As California's gay community began flourishing in the 1970s, a conservative politician pushed through a statewide ballot question. Should gay and lesbian teachers be banned from California schools? State Senator John Briggs told voters children were at risk of molestation and indoctrination in the classroom.
The teaching profession is riddled by the homosexual element, meaning that there are more homosexuals per population in the teaching profession than there is in the normal population, because that's where they can get to and recruit our children.
Now, what do you mean by recruit?
By recruit, I mean try to entice them into the lifestyle of homosexuality.
Though their political influence was small, queer activists began to mobilize against a growing anti-gay countermovement. If Proposition 6 passed at the ballot box, it would be more than a defeat for the teachers. It could set gay rights back for decades.
To have the ability to fire someone because they were gay was a very big deal. And if you stick your neck out, if this goes badly for us, you could lose everything.
In its 9th season, Slate's Slow Burn, Gays Against Briggs, revisits this consequential dispute on equality, the first time a state held a vote on gay rights. Host Christina Cauterucci brings us the voices of the activists and political consultants on both sides of the referendum, which echoes in today's news. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points from Slow Burn, Gays Against Briggs. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So, Toby, Leon Neyfakh was the original host of Slow Burn. That's gone through a couple hosts since then. Do you believe it still sort of retains its DNA as the Slow Burn of yore?
Yeah, this season certainly does, except for not having Leon's voice. It feels very much like a fiasco season. I mean, I think the elements are all there of really good interviews, good archival stuff. There's sort of a musical style that seems like it's pretty consistent throughout. And then this thing about looking at people who are either not well known or basically probably not publicly known at all and how they helped sort of influence events, I think is like the other part of it. And that's all to its credit.
Yeah. So, Kevin, we've obviously lived through a bunch of politics around anti-gay legislation, especially in recent years, and also in the early 2000s and the 90s. Is this a story that you were familiar with before this podcast?
Actually, no. I mean, I wasn't really familiar with this historical story. That's what makes Slow Burn so good, sort of historically. You couldn't call it a historical footnote, but it does tease out important points and tells a cohesive story about an incident that's kind of somewhat on the periphery of history, but something that's actually really important. And then it draws sort of that dashed line between the past and the present. So it does, we would say like, oh, well, this is no longer Leon's show. He launched it, but it's not, it's not him. The show's been going on a long time now, actually, Slow Burn, in his absence. And, Leon is just fantastic with what he does, but I also think that the host of this season, Christina Cauterucci, is also excellent.
Laura, so here's the thing that I always think about when I think about, people who say that gay teachers are somehow going to indoctrinate our students. And it came up in the podcast too. There's an assumption being made that people in any profession are talking about their relationships, private lives, sex lives at work.
Right.
And that assumption on its face, ridiculous. So what do you think about like the rhetoric that we're hearing in this podcast? I mean, it's extremely similar to the rhetoric we're hearing today, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the rhetoric at this time, it's hard to listen to because you listen to this and you're like, are these people for real? They're like, the gays are infiltrating the school. They want to make our kids gay or whatever. it's like they're implying that there's this like ulterior motive that like literally people become teachers to infiltrate the schools so they can be like, hey, you should be gay. And I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. But what I liked about that part of the podcast is then we bring in, again, like Toby was saying, the voices of the people that were there. We hear from a gay teacher at the time.
I was kind of cute. I was very effeminate. People said I was very funny. I had a secret desire to be a stand-up comic. And the joke I made was this. They say, you can't be gay and be a teacher, but show me a room full of teachers and I'll show you a gay bar. So there you are.
And I liked the way that he brought context to that whole time period when that was the narrative. Gay sex is illegal in California. You know, for basically him and everyone else, you're a criminal. And there's police entrapment going on, police officers going undercover. And because of that, here's this guy who's a teacher who's really in a vulnerable position. So it's not necessarily the kids that are vulnerable, it's the teachers that are vulnerable, because it's like there's like a witch hunt afoot to find out which teachers are gay and what are they doing. And in California, teachers found guilty of sodomy or having any sort of oral or, you know, other sex are at risk of losing their certifications at that time. And that's just wrong. But hearing it at that time, when you hear how widespread and how strongly people were like buying into that, and I know it's still happening now, but when you hear it, you're like, this is hard to listen to.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting to me is I always wonder how many straight people are arrested for anti-sodomy laws. You know, it's not like gay sex. It's oral sex and anal sex that's illegal. And it's like, how many stings are there for like blowjobs? Like, probably not a lot.
You know, Hugh Grant got caught.
I don't think that was for the sex part. Anyway, so there actually is this really interesting piece of tape from much closer today that I would encourage people to look up. I believe it was during one of the Florida's Don't Say Gay school board meetings, this piece of rhetoric around how if you talk about same-sex relationships in the classroom, it's like indoctrinating children and bringing sexual content into the classroom. And somebody got up and was like, what about like George and Martha Washington? Because they were talking about a relationship in the classroom. And it's like, how is that not bringing sex and relationship? And it was like, it was just like stymied. Like, it's like, you know, it's.
Where do you think John Quincy Adams came from?
Because they did it, Kevin.
Did it.
Because they absolutely.
Or they didn't do it or whatever. Yeah.
Toby, you have to admit, like the sourcing in this podcast is incredible. And Christina, I think, you know, as much as you never want to like think about like what is it like to platform like really hateful people, she does, you know, give a voice to a guy, the lawyer, who at the time, very, very much on the side of Prop 6, to this day, still talks about the immorality of being gay, of talking about being gay, of the personhood of being gay. He's in the podcast. She also has Ron Briggs' son, who's a very interesting character here. The sourcing is pretty great, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then there's also the teacher, I'm not going to remember the names of all these people who Laura was mentioning, a woman who's just like driving around maybe the Central Valley or something in a car. Like whenever she'd say vote no on Prop 6, she'd like follow them and like pull them over and like talk to them. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I you know, having Ron Briggs, who is John Briggs' son, kind of talk about his father in a sort of very judgmental, I guess, way is super interesting. He's very candid.
He would sell the chicken eggs that were in excess of what his family needed. And he found that if he withheld the chicken eggs from certain people, they'd pay more. And that they would even plead with him. And then he writes, power. I discovered what power was at age 5. I'm like, shit, really, Dad?
I was really taken. There's twice when there are men who at the time were pro Prop 6 and they get interviewed. And the most striking one is this one that you were just talking about, who goes with John Briggs to meet with Reagan and is obviously just so starstruck by Reagan. And like, I think he makes him smile or laugh or something. He's like, that's something I can take with me for the rest of my life.
But he's embarrassed by Briggs because Briggs is sleazy.
Yeah, he's like a used car salesman. He's got greasy hair. But what's kind of interesting is both these guys are still like, I don't think they like put it out there as much as they did back then, but they're still bigots about it. I mean, they still, like he says, you know, we can't let gays be teachers or in the military and stuff. And they're like, well, there's already gays there. There are already gay teachers in case of the military. It's like, well, if they're already embedded, we got to get them out. it's like embedded. What are you even talking about? It's
He's the word like infiltrated. Like
yeah, it's like it's not like some plot. It's like you have these huge institutions. You're just going to have gay people in them. I mean, that's just statistics. I mean, like why you wouldn't understand that is beyond me. And the idea that there's like some like coordinated infiltration strategy with some kind of goal in mind.
It's the gay agenda, Toby.
Fucking
it's the
bad
gay agenda.
It's like even beyond a conspiracy theory. It's just like living in some fucking fantasy land.
It's bad science.
But the fact that the other one was like, well, you know, I still think that if you're like having some kind of a moral equivalency between gay marriage and straight marriage, like you're way off base. It's like, come on, man. Like you're just being a bigot in front of everybody on this podcast. But I get, you know, that's where we are right now. There's a significant amount of the country that probably agrees with them.
Toby, I do agree with you on Ron Briggs, an interesting character to get in this podcast. I found him to be quite entertaining in some cases, like the story about making the gas station attendant check the car for the bomb. I thought that was funny, although I don't know if he and I are laughing for the same reasons about that. Well, if the car is going to blow up, might as well not be me, but somebody else.
They stopped coming with us.
I mean, you're laughing. It sounds scary, though.
I'm sorry. It was scary as all hell, but 45 years down the road is funny. Yeah.
Did it make your dad feel more important that somebody wanted to assassinate him?
Oh, I think he loved it.
And I'm not really positive where Briggs' son comes down on this issue 50 years later, but our culture surely has changed its perception of LGBTQ people, in part because of the gains of the people in the stories and others. Sometimes it's incremental, sometimes it's very large. And I actually think, I always sort of think about gay marriage as this thing that I see is really hopeful for that people can change their minds or be persuaded to see things differently. If you think about how gay marriage polled as an issue in the early aughts, when it becomes this wedge issue in 2004, and where it is today, that, you know, the acceptance of gay marriage, that people were able to be convinced and persuaded that this isn't harmful, and oh my God, there's more gay people in my life that I knew, and like that all changed because people were eventually persuaded. But they started at some point, and this is the point they started at, which is that all gays and lesbians are horrible, and that they're child molesters, and that they're drinking vampire blood, and all this other fucking bullshit. And so I don't know where Ron Briggs really is today on that. We certainly do hear from people who are bigoted and still sort of carry that, but I did think it was fantastic that these opposition forces tried to create a pamphlet about, you know, the dangers of homosexuality that was so explicit that it became a wanted piece of gay pornography.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of like, that was great. I was just like, you fucking idiots. You absolutely had that coming.
100%. Just like when they create something that ends up being like an instruction manual for creating a bomb.
That's right.
I love that.
I also like the San Ron. I liked when he was talking about when there was that threat out on his father, and he was kind of describing having to have the protector person sleep with him in the hotel who would like wake up in the morning smoking Camel cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
It painted a real picture of what it was like at that time. But I also was curious about where he lands now, because I don't feel like we really got that from him.
Yeah, I think we still have a couple of episodes to go. It's, you know, it's like when you want more, you're usually out of luck unless you're with us on Patreon.
That's true.
Because we give you so much more.
That's right.
For a small monthly sustaining membership.
It's like our Slate Plus, but better.
At patreon.com/partners in crime media. You get also all sorts of podcast episodes. I think this past month, in June, I think we have close to 30 podcast episodes?
10 million podcast episodes.
A whole bunch, because we got some great stuff coming in. We got even more in the summer. Don't be intimidated. You're not required to listen to everything, but you can listen to the things you like, such as Rebecca's special updates on the Karen retrial. I don't know where we are today, Thursday, end of June, if this has gone to the jury yet. I think by this point we probably
at this
close.
Point. Who knows?
But Rebecca has had all sorts of guests in who are totally fascinated with this case. But even if the Karen Reed trial is not your cup of tea, other fantastic episodes, including the Crime Writers on After Show. We talk about some of our summer plans this week, and I can tell you that I made up that topic between recording Monday's show and today's show because I came and said, oh, shit, what did I forget to come up with? A topic for the Crime Writers on After Show, and that's what we talked about.
Okay.
Don't me. You have brought up no topic.
Oh, I have ideas.
You have ideas.
Yes.
All right. We have Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast that you can get. You can also listen to our podcast called Married with Podcast. And then I want to say that the current episode of Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, Laura goes on a journey to a burlesque show.
Yeah.
But what she would really like is to, in probably the next episode, she is going to go to a Renaissance fair.
Yes.
Now, Laura, I'm asking you right now to open up your Slack, the Slack channel, and I want to ask you, who do you think that Renaissance princess is with the long red hair?
Yep.
And the double-sided
swordy
axe?
thing.
Yeah, swordy thing. You know who that is?
I have no idea.
That is podcaster Maggie Freeling.
That's right.
Who is a total...
That was my guess.
That was your guess?
She's a Renaissance Fair fan.
Yeah. Let me send you 2 more photos in the Slack.
Oh my goodness. My costume, by the way, doesn't look like that. I have my leather bodice thing that takes 2 people to get in and out of and sucks me in.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes another one.
Oh, I think it doubled up.
Oh my goodness. Maggie Freeling.
Yeah.
Now, if I didn't love her before, I love her now. Oh my.
Is this with the elfin ears? Yeah.
She's incredible.
By the way, she did send me a message and said that if, Laura, if you needed...
consultation?
If you needed weaponry... that she could get that to. She is offering it to you. She also offered costumes, but if you've seen Maggie Freeling... nothing she has is going to fit
She's the size of an actual doll.
It's not going to fit me. It's not going to fit me.
No, it's not going to fit. It's not going to fit anyone. I know, except another elf. But
I'm 5'3", and she makes me look like a fucking giant.
Oh my God. I cannot believe Maggie Freeling is in that world, and now I have so many questions.
You have so many questions. I know. It's fantastic, though, right? And other things you can get with us on Patreon starting next week. You can get episodes of Rebecca's game show. It's called Other People's Problems, OPP. We're going to have a new episode of OPP every week this summer. So again, tons and tons of stuff. Great value at patreon.com/partners in crime media.
All right.
We also have an Amazon storefront. Amazon contacted us and said, would you like a storefront where you, our fabulous listeners, can see some of our favorite things? Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
One of my favorite things to order on Amazon with regularity are cases of those tiny cans of Fever Tree ginger beer.
Yes, because they make for great Moscow mules.
Yes, and they're just delicious to drink by themselves.
And Toby, what are your Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
I almost did this one last week because I can hardly believe it actually exists, but here we go. Oreo Toffee Crunch Cream with sugar crystals.
Nice.
Chocolate sandwich cookies, family size, 17 ounces. Sounds awesome. And then this is intriguing too. Elizabeth Arden Anti-Aging Ceramide Capsules Serum.
I know what those are.
Advanced Daily Youth Restoring Serum, 90 count.
Amazing.
So it's both a capsule and a serum, apparently.
Oh, wow.
But it stops the aging. So there you go.
Fantastic. Those are all listener-inspired recommendations. Remember to shop us first when you do Amazon. Go to amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. Even bookmark us there. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
All right, Kevin, before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Wendy O'Malley. That's Wendy with an I.
All right.
An Wendy O'Malley and Monica Forsyth. Bless you.
Wendy, Monica, you're amazing. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. Thanks for everyone who supports us there. Thanks to everyone who doesn't but is thinking about it. I strongly encourage you to try it out back there. Folks who've been trying it out because of the Karen Reed updates say that they're really impressed with what we've got going on. So go to patreon.com/partners in crime media. Check us out. But if you don't, we appreciate you anyway.
If you want to see one of these photos of Maggie Freeling, also sign up for our newsletter because I'm going to put it in this week.
Did she tell you could share them? You should ask.
They were on Instagram.
Oh, okay. Then Jake, you can probably share them. All right. Thus ends the business section, right, Kevin?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. So, Kevin, who's sponsoring the podcast this time around?
Well, it's our friends from Quince.
Ooh, oh my God.
The weather's getting warmer. Time to ditch the jackets and sweaters and shorts and tees. Just get ready for summer. Why waste money on clothes that will only last one season?
Why? Why do it?
Why do it? Go to Quince.
Kevin, did I not just buy you the best shirt?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because like I have here like this first bullet point. Quince has all of the seasonal must-haves like
linen shirts.
100% European linen shirts from $30.
I literally just bought you a European linen shirt from Quince.
It was wonderful. It fit great. It held up great in the wash.
Yeah, I love my linen shirts from Quince. Love them.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to wear it all summer long. And you wonder, like, how do they get things like at these great prices? You should rest assured that Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices along with premium fabrics and finishes. And you look good AF.
Upgrade your wardrobe. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
At Mayo Clinic in Florida, we are predicting the unpredictable. Our experts are using a patient's own anatomy to create 3D printed, life-size organ models to map out challenges ahead of time, making complex surgeries more precise, efficient, and less invasive. We are making more possible at Mayo Clinic because every day we're doing what's never been done. Learn more at mayoclinic.org/possible. Mayo Clinic. You know where to go.
Okay, Kevin, so who's our next sponsor in this podcast?
We're sponsored by Shopify.
I know them.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about like sleuthing partners that get things done, like Frank and Joe.
Oh, yeah, Frank and Joe.
Who? Frank and Joe who?
I don't know who Frank and Joe are.
The Hardy Boys.
Oh, please. That was a boys' book.
Okay.
I don't want to be gendered, but come on.
All right, what about Bess and George?
Oh, they were Nancy Drew's friends?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They got it done. How about Holt and Steele?
From Remington Steele?
Yeah, what were their first names?
Remington.
Steele.
And Stephanie?
Stephanie Zimbalist was Laura
Oh,
Holtz.
I don't know.
Yeah, talk about perfect partners when it comes to solving crimes, but what about the perfect partners when it comes to growing your business? That's you and Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling sleuthing supplies or marketing mystery merch, maybe it's those online courses for cat detective school. Shopify will help you sell everywhere.
Kevin, if you ever bought anything online, Shopify is everywhere.
Yeah, it is. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever or whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. And Shopify helps you turn, that even includes like out the back of your mystery machine.
That's right.
You can sell the swag. And Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout.
Sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/crimewriters.
Crime Writers.
That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/crimewriters.
Crime Writers.
Now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/crimewriters.
Crime Writers.
This is a pretty incredible moment in the podcast, Toby, where, and there is this sort of like monolithic thinking about communities, right? The Black community, and in this case, the gay community, as if everybody thinks with one mind and everybody is the same. And we hear a lot about divisions within the gay community in this podcast, which I know still exists today. And in this case, in this particular fight, we hear divisions between more conservative and more liberal gay people. We hear about men and lesbians, and we hear notably about white gay people and people of color and who are gay. And it comes to a head when Richard Pryor shows up at this fundraiser and does a bit that starts where he comes out a little bit and then goes off. What did you think about that moment in the podcast?
It's quite a moment. I don't know. I had some kind of mixed feelings about it. And part of it is it just seemed sort of wildly off in that he kind of starts off, I think, trying to make a point. But my sense from listening to it is that it kind of started veering like a little bit too much into just sort of general homophobia.
Yeah.
So he starts off saying that he had sort of implying or saying that he had sex with a man. I'm not really sure what the point was there other than, maybe coming out slightly in this thing. but it then kind of devolves into sort of more general sort of homophobic jokes that sounded like they kind of fell flat and kind of put a real damper on the occasion.
After a few more minutes, he ended with a flourish.
And kiss my happy, rich, black ass.
Pryor put the microphone back in its stand, calm as could be, then walked off the stage and kept walking right to his car.
And then I think sort of illustrates that I guess there were some people in Hollywood who really were willing to put, the full force of their name and celebrity behind it. There are other people who either kind of wanted to do it, but maybe not quite to that extent or didn't quite get what they were doing or whatever. It sounds like that was kind of a fiasco. But I think the sort of larger situation is that the gay movement, at least as portrayed here, was largely white, and that, black gays were sort of marginalized. And as a matter of fact, the gay and the black civil rights movement were also sort of at odds. So I thought that the way they kind of described the different sort of political alliances and non-alliances was interesting. There was that. There's the fact that the Teamsters and gay activists ended up being allied because not so much that the Teamsters organization was super pro gay rights or whatever, but because they had similar objectives, they were able to kind of help each other out, like reach these very specific goals.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
Yeah. So it was like this very like utilitarian sort of power politics, but taking place within these sort of activist or labor communities. I thought that was really interesting. I thought they did an excellent job of making that kind of a compelling story. And again, like you were saying, showing these aren't these like sort of monolithic efforts. They're very factionalized, very fractured, and it requires a lot to kind of hold them together as much as they did.
Well, I think what was interesting about that one, Toby, is they were like, it's a star-spangled night for rights.
Yeah.
But they didn't say gay rights.
Right.
And
on purpose.
Exactly.
By design. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like, and you have Paul Newman, Carol Burnett, Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta, all there. And it's like Hollywood, we're coming out. Look at us. We are supporting this. And then as soon as it gets a little uncomfortable, they're all like, well, that was such an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also agree that the Richard Pryor incident was, sort of fascinating. But my takeaway was that it underscores the tensions within the movement or within the movements of people who should be natural allies, right? And I think that if I'm remembering correctly, one of the things that instigated Pryor's comments was that he witnessed something backstage.
Yep.
Where I can't remember.
A black staffer wasn't treated well.
Yeah. That was it. And so it reminded Pryor of sort of the way that he felt that gay activists weren't backing up civil rights activists or hadn't in the past or whatever. You see this in modern political movements today, especially where you get people that are focused on one particular spot of an issue that may overlap or not overlap or sometimes could conflict with another one, where people who have more in common than they don't, but these are still problems where they stumble over one another. And it's also important, as we learned in the podcast, that the gay rights movement was really in its infancy. It's certainly a couple of years, a decade or so behind other big movements at the time. The women's liberation movement, civil rights, gay rights, somewhat new. They don't have any faces for it, right? Harvey Milk is apparently the biggest, face, and not everybody in California knows who Harvey Milk is. So I thought that while this could have been sort of like, again, a historical footnote about Richard Pryor coming out and letting people know he's bisexual, though I don't think he ever identified publicly as such or whatever. But instead of people remembering that, just remembered his anti-gay comments and walking off the stage.
I think it's really interesting because the divisions in every movement exist. And this also came up in the podcast we listened to about the AIDS crisis, right? Mm-hmm. And I think in our lifetimes, we have seen more movement in queer rights probably than we have in almost anything else in terms of gay marriage being passed. But now, of course, there's this big regression. And I've seen this, very recently with trans people not necessarily getting the support that they need from people that might be allies. Women, notably, don't necessarily support trans people as they should. Other people in the queer community aren't necessarily. Trans people sometimes say that they're not being supported to the extent to which they supported the movement early on. People of color in any community, not necessarily. You see this over and over and over again. People of color in minority communities always seem to be at the bottom of movements. You also see it, by the way, in very conservative movements. Huge division. You're not pure enough. There was this amazing incident that happened this week where this trad wife TikToker got elevated for a minute because everyone thought she was racist. And then all of a sudden there's this conspiracy theory that she might be Jewish. So now all the right-wing people have ostracized her. And now she's not getting the support she needs. It's really amazing to me that maybe it's social media, maybe it's the digital age, I don't know. But the Coors story really hit me because this idea of we have joint enemies so we can ally and be a coalition. We don't seem to be able to do that anymore when it comes to getting shit done. I mean, Laura, when's the last time you remember two disparate groups of people? People can't even get their shit together around IVF. People can't really seem to get their shit together around that. And that should be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you were going to say, when's the last time you drank a Coors Light? Never. But I think it's interesting now. If you look up Coors now, they're we are allies of LGBTQ+. Well, during this strike and boycott, which we hear about in the late 60s and through the 70s, which kind of coincides with this labor strike at their headquarters, we hear about this sort of issue around, and I'm thinking, gosh, we just had another beer issue with trans people in recent years.
Yep.
So it's interesting how labor unions, LGBT activists, how all of these people played into this. And in San Francisco, the LGBT community, and then you have the union people kind of allying to promote this boycott. But, I think that Coors, because I don't know, I think of Coors and I think All-American, Coors Light, Coors Beer. And so to hear that this was sort of this lightning rod at that moment in history it was really interesting to hear about that.
Adolf Coors.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's incredible that boycott was so effective that, there was 10% of their sales in California, which was significant. Clearly the Bud Light, quote, boycott, not so significant, right, Kevin?
Yeah, well, there's so many echoes in today's picture, the trans panic. It's very clear here. Again, no trans teachers, students, athletes in schools, because that will indoctrinate them and they'll all be molested. Again, same kind of language. Keep them out of bathrooms. That's a dangerous place for the rest of us. Protect kids from drag queen performances. It just feeds a hateful narrative that continues to perpetuate itself. They're slightly adjusting who their target is. But if Coors can come this way and we as a society can come, not all the way, still a lot of fucking work to do. But if we can be persuaded to change our views on these important issues, I'm hoping that we can get there specifically for the trans community. But this is why things like Slow Burn are so great, because it does draw the dotted line between something in the past and something in the present.
There's no doubt in my mind that a Briggs initiative could pass in a state. There's no doubt.
Today.
Yeah.
In a state, yeah. Well, a lot of states, yeah.
Toby, there's no doubt about that, right?
I think 30 states, no question. I don't think it would even be close.
And, and then a court on a federal level might overturn it, but then who knows what the Supreme Court would say at this point, right?
Louisiana just passed putting the 10 Commandments in the classrooms.
That's right.
I think it could potentially happen in New Hampshire. It's if you've got a state legislature that's willing to pass stuff, it doesn't mean it's gonna be upheld in the courts, but you can pass a lot of stuff.
Right.
But what's different, I think, in California is that it's a referendum system, right? It's not going through the legislature. It's just a straight, can you get 50% plus one votes on something? And that allows, it's kind of screwed California, that system, because
and recall elections.
California's wild.
Recalls, and then it's we don't want more property taxes, but we want more stuff in schools. It's how do you pay for this stuff? But that's the interesting thing about California, and I don't know what other states do that. I think there might be a couple other states where you can do things by referendum, where everywhere else I think you basically have to go through the legislative process. I don't know if you could do it with gay rights now, but trans stuff, 100%. I think a lot of states are very vulnerable.
I think the trans community is the low-hanging fruit, and I don't think it is a stretch at all to think that gay rights beyond trans rights are absolutely next.
I absolutely feel like gay marriage is in peril.
Absolutely.
Because because the Supreme Court in concurring opinions has argued that the same legal rationale used in Dobbs, privacy, should be applied to certain cases regarding contraception and gay rights and gay relationships. And so, I think we ought to be worried. We ought to be vigilant about this because it has been a slow burn to this point.
At Mayo Clinic in Florida, we are predicting the unpredictable. Our experts are using a patient's own anatomy to create 3D printed, life-size organ models to map out challenges ahead of time, making complex surgeries more precise, efficient, and less invasive. We are making more possible at Mayo Clinic because every day we're doing what's never been done. Learn more at mayoclinic.org/possible. Mayo Clinic. You know where to go.
Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. He's rejoined by familiar faces like Judge Reinhold and John Ashton as Rosewood and Taggart, along with new characters and new hijinks.
I didn't realize that you couldn't really buy helicopters.
Watch Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. only on Netflix, July 3rd. Rated R.
Whether you're a morning person or a bedtime procrastinator, everyone deserves a mattress that works for their style. And you'll find the best mattress for you at Ashley. The new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley brings you one-of-a-kind body-conforming technology, making every sleep tailored to be your best. The collection also features cool-to-the-touch covers and motion absorption to help minimize sleep disruptions from partners, pets, or kids. Shop the all-new Temper-Adapt collection at Ashley, in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out this season of Slow Burn? Gays versus Briggs. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this season of Slow Burn?
Thumbs up. Slow Burn is one of those shows that every season, it's like a period in history that I may know a little about, but I don't really know a lot about. And what they do so well is bring that era and that movement and that period to life through voices of people who lived through it, but voices of people who really have something to say about their own personal experience in a way that really highlights what it was like living then, what was at stake, how people overcame it, how people came together. And I feel like this season of Slow Burn definitely does that. You know, we hear from a lot of different voices that were in California at the time. We hear from teachers. We hear from the son of one of the key players who's trying to put this proposition on the California ballot that would ban gays and lesbians from working in public schools. So it's one of those, like, whenever I hear Slow Burn, I'm like, okay, so kids in school that aren't engaged, this is a really great way to teach them about history because it is thorough, it is balanced, it is interesting, it is informative. And so thumbs up for me.
Toya Ball, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Gays versus Briggs?
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up. I thought this was really good. I mean, I don't know how much to really go into it, but it's well sourced. The storytelling is excellent. It's a story that is interesting in its own time and sort of resonates today with what's going on in our country today. It's something that I think most people won't have really heard very much about. And I think even if you knew something about it, there's going to be stuff for you to hear. It's just a very, very good, well put together. So strong thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up too. I certainly love the format of this. Slow Burn is a show that finds people at the center of an important story and on the periphery and weaves them together with great storytelling. But it also lets you know what the stakes are for a historical event. Where it seems like at this point where we are today, did it have any sort of influence? Should we be concerned about what the stakes are or were? And they make you do that. They make you think about what happens. And like I said, it's also reflective of issues in the present day. So if past is prologue, then Slow Burn is an excellent example of how to execute that kind of story. Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up for me too. I love Slow Burn. I love these historical in-depth stories. I love the experts in the story. I love the sourcing of this story. I think, by the way, it is so important to hear words directly from bigots. Because I think if you don't, it's very easy to sort of like other people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hear directly from someone's mouth that they think that like certain human beings shouldn't exist, it's so much more powerful than talking about people who think that. I'm just going to say it's very, very well sourced in a way that brings a lot of dignity to this story, a lot of humanity to this story, and has all the right voices in it. And it's just very, very thorough and lovely. And, I think you'll learn a lot when you listen to it. Yeah, so thumbs up for me for this season of Slow Burn. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, question for you. Do we have a cat of the week this week?
We have a very unique cat of the week this week, people.
Very unique.
Oh.
Very unique. It is our listener, Elizabeth McCarthy.
A person is the cat of the week?
Elizabeth McCarthy of Eugene, Oregon, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, currently typing from the airport in Fiji on her way to Samoa, has been listening to Crime Writers On all around the world for years and sent this wonderful email posing with cats around the world.
Amazing.
Here are some cats in South Sudan, Afghanistan, Libya. Here's some more cats camping in Maryland, on the bus in Salt Lake City, in Taiwan. And now here's pictures of dogs all around the world.
What does Elizabeth do for work? Amazing. This is incredible.
Elizabeth's partner is a veterinarian. They don't have any pets of their own because of their travel during lockdown. She remembers having a dream that she got a cat. She was very excited that she could submit her dream cat for Cat of the Week. Hasn't happened yet, but we have been fortunate to meet lots of nice animals on our travels. The pictures are amazing. Like, this was one of the best emails I think we've ever gotten in terms of just like, holy moly, Crime Writers On around the world. And if you would like to follow Elizabeth's travels, you can find them on The Hat Off His Head, Stories of Kindness Across Cultures.
Amazing.
And you can see some of their animal pictures. But Elizabeth, this email just made my entire week. So thank you.
I wonder if when she listens to Crime Writers On, if she gets ads in Cantonese.
I don't know.
Not just Spanish.
She just gets Spanish.
Spanish, Farsi. I mean, there's all sorts of fantastic places. I'm so jealous of it. Yeah.
And I would encourage any listener who wants to send us pictures of how you listen to Crime Writers On, send it to crimewriterson@gmail.com. You can send us any question or comment there. Just please don't talk about my voice. I can't stand it anymore. All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you, of course they can email us, but if they want to see you online, how can they find you there?
They can find me at Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
And Joey Ball, folks want to wish you well in your recovery from whatever the hell is going on with your knee. How can they find you online?
At ToeyBallNH.
Kevin Flynn, what about you? Folks want to see your nice crisp white shirt. How can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn, and P stands for pride, because I am an ally.
You can find me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. You can follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On, but mostly you should join our Facebook group. It's rad. Just go to Facebook. People say they've rejoined Facebook to join our group and don't regret it. Go to Facebook, find us there. There's a pinned post on how to join the group. Get episodes early and ad-free, plus all the other great stuff we make at our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. There's a bunch of collections there, so you can see all the different shows we make and just listen to the ones you like. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our editor is the wonderful Livy Burdett. The executive producer of this show is Kevin Flynn. This podcast is recorded in the Treehouse Yoga Studio above the Mockingbird Cafe in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the Closet, in our New Hampshire basement, where we also convince unsuspecting gas station attendants to check for bombs under the hood. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Okay, now it says Yeti is recording on my Audacity. All right, sorry. I'm up in like the Vermont nether areas in my friend Mary's.
That's not what I want to know.
The nether areas.
I don't know. I'm in this like pseudo little lodgy place.
Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. He's rejoined by familiar faces like Judge Reinhold and John Ashton as Rosewood and Taggart, along with new characters and new hijinks.
I didn't realize that you couldn't really fly helicopters.
Watch Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. only on Netflix, July 3rd. Rated R.